Yeah, my brother, you see right there that the way they got the white American cheese on top of the brown steak. Why don't they put the brown steak that symbolizes the black man in America on top of the white American cheese?
Okay.
And I'm going to accept them no matter what they do. I don't care how hard you don't want me to accept you. I will accept you so
I
hard right now.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I,
White people?
I might be. I know it was some white people.
Well done.
Yeah.
Usually is.
Sounds like
some white
something
people
white people
shit.
would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll challenge them to a fight. It'll
Yeah.
be a fight to the death.
Yeah.
Or until one gives up. And when
Oh, damn.
I thought Alf was real until I was 16.
Get the fuck out.
Hell yeah.
So Wafeeq is my first name, and Zarif
Okay.
is my last name.
Okay.
I did Feek Zarif on Facebook because Facebook was messing up when I tried to create my business page.
Yeah.
They said something about I had that name for another page already. So I changed it on my personal page to Feek Zarif.
You're like, I'm quite sure I'm the only Wafeeq Zarif.
yeah.
No, but that's the worst whenever you're creating, because you're creating branding across and you're like, oh, shit, now I have to change all the other ones because this one's taken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming to the podcast,
thank you
man.
for
You
being
know,
here.
Manly Girly Show.
Good to be here.
Thank you. And we met, like, we've circled around a while, and then sorry I was late. You hired me for a project. That was super late.
That's cool.
Andy will tell you I have all the best intentions, but I'm bad with time. I'm not the greatest at project management.
But he is great at a lot of things. I mean, he pays a lot of attention to lighting and sound.
I'm an
and
idea
shit
man,
like
you know,
that.
like
So he's a big idea man.
Yeah.
Good.
But so we met. You were doing comedy. You mentioned that you also have a side business. So tell us a little bit about you, Wafeeq.
Well, yeah, we did meet. It was at Dirty Bull Brewery for an open mic. So I was doing stand-up comedy. That's what I do, stand-up comedy. I also do improv comedy, sketch comedy
What's the
as well.
difference between improv comedy and stand-up comedy?
I hate peanuts.
You hate peanuts?
I hate peanuts. And
What they do to you?
Well, I don't really like the flavor, but I am accepting if you do have peanut breath. I will accept you despite your horrible breath.
I don't have peanut breath.
Well, I accept you anyway, and
So-
I'm going to accept you no matter what you do.
I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
So what we did just now was improv.
Okay.
But
I feel it.
so is comedy the peanuts, or is improv the peanuts to you?
Comedy would be the peanuts.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you don't like comedy.
Nope, I don't like people, but I accept people who like comedy anyway,
Okay.
Okay.
and I'm gonna accept them no matter what they do. I don't care how hard you don't want me to accept you. I will accept you so
I
hard
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love that.
He will aggressively accept you. Yeah. Like, I like it.
Actively.
right now. Yeah, that's the difference between stand up and improv. You just make stuff up
Okay.
based on a relationship or based on a hard personal stance. Like I hate peanuts, and then you said something, and then I'm just gonna accept what you said.
Do you know
and add to it.
I've never heard it explained that way. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
You can explain a lot in life with peanuts.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the guy? Who's the guy who discovered peanuts?
What?
I don't think I know.
No,
See,
no,
I know
no,
who
no,
you're
no.
talking about because
the-
it's part of Black history.
Yes, exactly. I learned about
Yeah.
him when I was a kid, and I'm telling you, I learned all
George
kinds.
Washington Carver.
Yes, that's who it was, and he didn't invent the peanut, but he invented all like the uses for
Yes,
peanuts.
a lot of
Yes.
different applications. Now it gets
Absolutely.
deeper than that because the part they didn't teach us in school is that he was castrated.
Get the fuck out.
Really?
Nah, I watched the
They
documentary.
took his
on it.
peanuts,
Tell
huh?
me.
They did take his
Yeah.
peanuts.
Yeah.
So he had a very squeaky voice. He talked like this because they
The
castrated him.
testosterone
Right.
never developed. Interesting, because
Yeah.
that comes from your. Oh
Yep.
fuck.
I don't know why they did it, but I watched the
Who
documentary
did it to
on.
him?
I think it.
Some white
I
people?
might be. I know it was some white people.
Well done.
Yeah.
Usually
Sounds
is.
sounds like
like
sounds
some
like something
white
white people
people
would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember why. I think it was maybe he got in trouble for something or something like that. But he was castrated.
Cat called a white woman.
Probably so.
Probably.
Yeah.
You know, Black Wall Street.
Yeah. I heard him
Happens.
talk on the documentary. He did have a very squeaky voice.
Shit. There was a documentary?
Yeah.
Where'd you see this? PBS?
PBS.
A bitch be learning. You know,
Yeah.
I love me
PBS.
some
What
PBS.
PBS is for.
I do love PBS. No, I mean, you just sign me up for some Nova, man.
Yep. And what I like about it, PBS documentaries, they don't have a lot of music. So
That's true. And they
whenever-
don't
right. Whenever
They don't
I
have
watch
a lot
that-
of stance either.
Nope,
like
they don't.
they're just reporting facts.
Yeah, whenever I hear music in the background, dramatic music,
They're trying to
'cause
make
see,
you feel away.
right. That's what
Yeah.
music is used for in productions, to make you feel a certain way.
That's so true.
PBS is like, a real documentary is just, all right, here's the facts. This is what we're going to talk
Here's
about.
some old dude that you don't give a shit about.
Right.
PBS has
He's
great
not famous at all.
Yeah.
They have a great stuff on YouTube on space. Like there's a PBS,
you, no, that's- I
like
watch- that's my
multiverses and all that stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
Phenomena.
PBS is some good shit.
You said it's John Washington Carver. I grew up in Peru, so I don't know much about him.
George Washington Carver.
Yeah.
George Washington Carver lived in the early 1900s, and he discovered a bunch of different applications for the peanut
Yeah.
besides just making it into a butter and smearing it on bread.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't even think they really did peanut butter before him, even. You know what I mean?
Probably
Like, I
not.
think that he's the father, the
Peanut butter's not
grandfather
a
of
thing in
peanut butter.
South America, at least not in
it
Peru.
not?
Really?
No, like
they not have peanuts
no, they have peanuts, but like peanut butter is not a thing. Like when I moved to the States, it's only when what is this peanut butter? Like it's
What did
there's
you guys
nothing.
do with them? You just ate them like peanuts?
Yeah, everything else that you do with peanuts is just peanut butter. Is literally it was never invented down there,
Do you
or
guys
never,
know about
you know.
boiled peanut?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Is
It's
that
a big thing in South
it's
Carolina.
Okay, I was like, it's in North Carolina, South. Is it good?
It's
I have
disgusting to me.
actually never had them, but I see the line is long every time I go.
There's a
So-
line. There's a place. There's
Yeah,
a store.
there was a Walmart on Clemson Road
Get
in
the
Columbia,
fuck
South
out.
Carolina. Every time you go in or drive into the parking lot, they would be selling boiled peanuts.
Get the
And
fuck
it was
out.
always a line. So
I mean, they sound nasty. I'm gonna try.
they
'em,
sound
though.
nasty to
They
me
sound
too.
They're
nasty.
disgusting.
I could do roasted, but I don't think I want smushy.
Ooh.
Well, that's what it
peanuts.
makes me think of is like the texture of peanuts are already like just on the side of if you did too much for them, like nobody likes a stale peanut, you know what I mean? So if it got too soft, that's like a mushy banana. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
eat that.
I've had them and they're disgusting. But in Peru, they do have what they do with peanuts is they, and I think you see them here in North Carolina towns in the mountains where they have this like almost like reddish coating that's kind of sweet. You
Yeah.
know, like they're like
Yeah.
almost like spice, but they're like
No, I know
sweet.
what
They're
you're
like
talking about.
candied
They're
peanuts
called
or something. I don't know what they
something.
are.
Whatever candied peanuts. So really, what you would like with your peanuts are a little candy.
No, always. You know, my peanut's always looking for candy. You know.
So can I ask you, like, do Muslims, do they not do caffeine or other things?
No, we do. You're thinking about Mormons.
No, I know. I just don't know anything about Muslims. So I
Oh,
know
yeah.
about Mormons, but what's like some other stuff? Is that okay for me to ask?
Yeah, that's cool. We don't eat pork,
Okay.
and we don't drink alcohol. We don't do any intoxicants.
So like cigarettes?
Yeah,
Any type
cigarettes.
of stimmer?
No
'cause
mushrooms,
that, I
no
guess-
cannabis, no nothing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then
pretty
why
much.
isn't caffeine included in that?
Because I said that wrong.
Oh, my bad.
It's not stimulants. That was
Okay.
on me.
Oh, okay. So
it
cocaine's
is-
good.
Well, no. See, it's not that it's a stimulant that's the problem. It's anything that takes you out of your natural mindset, your
Yeah.
natural mind state, because you need to be in the mind state to be able to really worship properly.
Okay.
So something.
To appreciate the
Navigate-
creation. or
Appreciate,
something like that.
navigate the
Okay.
appreciation
Yeah,
of
and
creation.
worship properly. So if you were high, you wouldn't be in the mindset to worship properly.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I like
What
that. So,
about-
it's sorry, go ahead.
Native Americans and their ayahuasca.
That's the what is that peace pipe stuff?
No, it's more like like cactuses that have natural hallucinogenic type things in them, and they use them within their.
It's
I
almost
guess
like the
you could
opposite
say
is
their
what you mean.
culture and religion and everything, and they're like, hey. In order to feel closer to God, we're just gonna smoke a bunch of peyote and do ayahuasca and commune with the Great Spirit.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know what
Wafeeq accepts everybody from what I heard. So
Oh,
I do. I accept them so hard.
Accept them
So
violently
hard,
and
violently.
aggressively.
but that is interesting. It's like a
It
little
is
bit of yin
interesting
yang.
because it's like a very different dynamic there. So
Yeah. So when you mentioned so caffeine's okay because it's not as strong. It's like it doesn't affect the mental state. Is that kind of right?
That's
the
what I'm
logic?
assuming because I've never gotten high from drinking caffeine. I don't know if you can even get high.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because in Peru, right, and that's why I ask is there's maybe about the Greek because that makes sense. Okay, I here we're super understanding. I think everybody has, how do I even know that you're real? You're only sure that you're real. You can't be sure that I'm or she are real. we agree because we both see the couch over there, right? We see the environment around us. It's like, okay, we're living in the same reality. So, we say reality suggestion, whatever you want to live in. But we like to think, okay, well, how does it work, right? And thank you for explaining it. And then I wonder the question, right? Like in Peru, there's the coca leaf. The coca leaf is not cocaine, like workers in the fields and also in high altitudes when you don't have a lot of oxygen in your blood. People like munch on it, like work. It's kind of like caffeine. It's like kind of like a Red Bull. It gives you energy so you can work throughout the day, but it's not really affecting your mind. So I always wonder, I'm like, if it's the green, I wonder if just the leaf, which you chew it, they call it chachar. They like wrap it in like a rock and just like, chew on the leaf.
Yeah.
And
Like you would chew on a mint leaf or something. Like
yeah,
that. Yeah, I get
and in
it.
a way, it's kind of like caffeine. So I wonder if that would be okay,
So,
because it's not. Because I didn't know about the affecting the mental. That's something that we just learned today. We didn't know about that.
I'm sure it is, as long as it doesn't completely change their mind state.
Right. I don't think it does.
I don't think anybody. I doubt they're high while they're doing that. 'Cause
No, they
stay
don't.
up
It's
to
like
work.
just energy. It's kind of just like
That's
okay.
that's a Red Bull.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't know that about
I didn't
Muslim
either, yeah.
or Islam.
So
So-
there's an ant I want to say it's in the Amazon, but there's a particular ant colony that
Okay.
will go to these particular trees at this particular time of the day because the sap from the tree will get them drunk. Intoxicate
So
the
it's an
ants.
ant bar.
It is.
Okay.
It's an ant bar, and they kind of only go at the end of the day, sort of thing. And
At
then
5
you can
o'clock,
see
alright.
a general like change, and then they're like, okay, we're just gonna tie on at the watering hole, and they get drunk at that tree. And I think it's interesting to me that it's like, how do you know that you're an ant? Do you guys like what level of communication? I know, that we know from science that the way that they communicate to each other, with electrodes and all of that kind of stuff. How do you communicate? I'm gonna catch you at the watering hole later. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And let's tie one on. Let's have a couple of brewskis and
Yeah.
get crunk at the bar.
Ants are fascinating.
Ants are
Yeah,
fascinating.
they are. They're pretty smart.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they. A long time ago, some ants figured it out, and then they just kept doing it and taught it to the rest of the ants, and
Yeah.
they just passed it on.
And they're like, don't tell the bees.
Right, because the bees already have honey.
They already have.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
already
yeah,
got
yeah.
your thing.
Yeah. Animals are fascinating to me. A lot of times, what I like to do is watch animal stuff on YouTube.
Yes.
Because the Discovery Channel is watered down. It is
Yes.
made for TV. They can't show you everything.
Yes.
I've learned a lot about the big cats from just watching YouTube stuff.
Like what?
that I didn't know.
Stuff one thing that we wouldn't know.
We couldn't survive if we had to be them because they're it's vicious.
Yeah.
For example, when a pride of lions might be 30, 40 deep, when the male lions hit a certain age, they have to leave and go live and be bachelors, or their fathers will try to kill them.
It's like Dr. Dredd, I mean, not Dr. Dredd.
Dr. Dredd.
Judge Dredd, you ever see?
Yeah, I
Where they have to
have.
take the long
I
walk,
have. I've seen
like,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, and if they stay, their fathers will try to kill them because their fathers look at them as threats to their dominance.
Sure.
So,
To their empire.
and also too to prevent incest, because if they stay, they'll try to mate with their sisters because it's like
And
40,
their
50.
mamas probably too.
They're like bunnies. Bunnies do that too.
Yeah, right.
They don't give
and
a
when
fuck.
they leave, they go and wander off. It might be two brother lions wandering off, living the bachelor life.
Okay.
And then they go and try to find another pride.
Another
of lions,
pride,
right?
really? So they get
So
kicked
the
out of
Lion King
pride?
is factual? Are you telling me? Mm-hmm. Holy shit.
Get the fuck out.
'Cause he goes off.
He had to go out.
Yeah.
Oh, get
And then he
out.
finds a pride that's
So
actually his
is-
pride.
So wait. So is Scar really the catalyst for what had to happen?
Yeah, he was.
He
Oh,
was.
snap.
Yeah.
Oh snap! He's not even a
was.
villain perspective.
Wow,
Oh, shit.
that
He's
is
just a lion.
crazy.
He's
He
just a
is.
lion doing lion shit.
Yep.
Still
Now, this is
lion.
when it gets really crazy, right?
Yeah.
When they go wander out, they go and find another pride and they challenge the leaders of that pride. So here's what happens. They go and run up on the other pride
Yeah.
and they find out who are the two lions. It's usually no more than two running this pride, and they'll challenge them to a fight. It'll be
Yeah.
a fight to the death
Yeah.
or until one gives up. And when they do this, all of the female lions, they all line up and watch
Cheering.
because they're going to acknowledge whoever wins as
They're
the
betting.
leader, and their babies, their cubs are behind them. So if the two new lions win, the old lions can keep fighting until the death, or they can just run off in disgrace, right? Say the two new lions that came over, when they win, they immediately, the first thing they do is murder all of the cubs of the previous lion. So this happens right
the whole
in front.
generation.
Yeah, they slaughter all of them. This happens right in front of the mother lions. And
Lions are brutal.
yeah, monkeys do this too.
Yeah,
Do
we,
they?
we
I
have
believe it.
like a
Let me
video
tell you
here
about
of some of these lions. It says,
Okay, you got a video?
Young lion gets beating when trying to join coalition. Because there's a few lions.
Trying to join a coalition. These aren't the dominant males I've seen in this area before.
Yeah. Usually I only see one lion at a time, but yeah, this is scary.
That's like 4 of them.
This looks like that one scene like from Pornhub. Oh, so he's joining? He's the one trying to join. Oh, damn. That's
Yeah.
Toad's brutes.
Yeah,
Hey, listen, he's fighting his heart out. He's taking all,
Yeah.
he's losing, but
Is he?
yeah, he's losing. I mean,
Oh, that roar is
yeah.
magnificent. It was incredible.
You're absolutely right. They don't show shit like this on Discovery, do they?
Nope. I watched the YouTube video. It was like 30 minutes, and it was just killing all the cubs. It was crazy.
We get the Disney version.
Oh, here it says lions chase their sons. I think this is where you maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna do a whole round of these. Oh, there's the son walking away. I think maybe.
Yeah, they get kicked out, or else they got to fight their fathers to the death.
Oh wow. Oh, that's sad. Oh yeah, he's chasing him off. He's like, get out of here. And then and those older lions, they're just
just
subservient to the main one. That's why they already know their
Yeah.
pecking
Well, so
order.
I'm curious, though. Okay, so like if a new lion comes and he beats up all the old lions, and the other old lions, they have to go off in disgrace. Do they just live on their own then, or do
They do until they can
die?
unless they go take over another pride.
Oh, get the fuck out! So if
Right.
they're well enough that they can go, okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense. They
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
another chance
Yeah.
then.
You know what they say? Hurt people, you know?
right.
Hurt people,
You know,
hurt
the
people.
most fascinating thing about it to me was, and I was watching this happen when they were killing the cubs, because they don't want the bloodline of the rival lions to survive. They want to start their own fresh set of cubs in their bloodline.
Yeah.
While the mother lions are watching their cubs, their children get murdered, they immediately go into heat. And they can immediately, after watching this, start reproducing. Now, this is when it gets real crazy. They'll start reproducing with the new lions.
Yeah.
They'll start mating, but then it'll be a constant for like 48 hours straight lion orgy, where all the female lions are mixing in with both of the new male lions, just going back and forth, mating with both of them to confuse the issue of parentage. They don't want either lion to know who's the father of the cub. Here's why. Because if Arturo and I are the two male lions, right?
Yeah.
And you have Arturo's lion cub, I might look at that lion cub as outside of my bloodline
I
as a
would.
threat, and I might want to kill it, right?
Yeah.
So they confuse the two
But
male
why
lions.
don't they know? Because like animals are so fucking smart. You
They
know
go.
what I mean?
I was watching it. They were going at it for 48 hours, just straight mating.
You
And
couldn't
so
tell, huh?
You couldn't tell. So now neither lion is gonna kill any cubs because they don't know if it's my
But
cub
if
or
some
yours.
new lion comes in, I'm just curious because this seems like so like they're. I just feel like this hasn't been planned out very well, and they are lions. So so let's say lion number 1, he comes in and he's got his pride, right? And he's got all his bitches, his harem or whatever, and then this new lion comes in. He kills all the cubs. He kills the old lion, or maybe he just runs them off, whatever. And he has this big old lion orgy with these other lions, and then they have new babies. And before those babies can even grow up, a new lion comes in. That's what I keep thinking is happening.
Yeah.
Like, how are these babies ever going to grow?
They have to
Up.
hope that their father can beat off the new lions that come in.
As you mentioned, it's like,
That is
it's a
insane.
lions in VIP with all these bitches or harem, as you refer to them, and then somebody's gonna break into VIP and try to crash the party.
Yeah. It's,
Somebody's
it's
going to break
fascinating.
into VIP.
And they don't show
Yeah.
you that on Discovery Channel.
They don't. I've never.
I gotta tell you,
Well, I don't know. I think it was more wild when we were younger. Like to me, Discovery Channel. I don't know if it was specifically shit. It might have been PBS when I was a kid too, but I feel like it was more wild back then. You saw
Yeah.
more. You know,
But I do
some
think
animals act an animal.
I do think that you're 100% on point, right? You can watch animals like we have 5 bunnies, right? Like and like I'll tell you, like you just learn so much just from watching them. Like I didn't know that bunnies had like a pecking order. There's like
Hierarchy.
a dominant pair. Usually the female is dominant. And rabbits, another thing that you don't know, as you mentioned, the heat for the lions and rabbits is rabbits will go in heat if a male rabbit is trying to hump them. That's when they go in heat. So it's like,
Basically, if you have a male rabbit around, that's why you're gonna have.
and it's like she won't go into heat unless the male rabbit humps the buck, and then once they have baby bunnies, they're almost fertile like within a couple weeks or a month. Like it's kind of crazy, and that's why they reproduce.
So that's where
so
that
much.
old phrase comes.
Yeah, fuck like
like-
rabbits.
Yeah.
Their gestational period is like 2 months, and then they can almost immediately get pregnant.
Yeah, and then at 6 months or 4 to 6 months from being born, they are
They're
fertile
ready to
again.
get pregnant. Yeah.
So it's insane. Like you can, give birth to one, then it takes a couple months off, and then by the time they're ready again, the baby bunny is almost ready again. So it just,
yeah, there's a lot of bunnies.
it's yeah.
Just take over this whole house. With
I don't
bunnies.
suppose you need a baby bunny for Christmas, do you? Wafeeq?
Yeah.
No, that might just take over my place. That's crazy.
But just give you one.
multiply.
They can't multiply that way.
I feel like it's gonna find a way, as they said, as
Life,
Jeff Goldblum said
life
in
finds a
Jurassic
way.
Park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
But they're
awesome.
so cute. You would like them.
yeah, I like bunnies.
Yeah, bunnies
Yeah.
are cute.
Yeah,
They are. The way they say it's like if we go broke, I mean, bunnies are cheap. We can watch them or we can eat them. Like there's meat bunnies.
yeah,
It used to be an American staple.
yeah.
Used to eat
I've,
bunnies.
I've had that before.
You've had rabbit?
It's good.
Had rabbit. I've had deer. I've had
Oh,
squirrel.
you know some rednecks, huh?
My
Squirrel?
grandfather.
Your grandfather, your beer drinking grandfather. He'd
Yeah.
like to shoot animals, huh?
Well, yeah. And one day he hit a squirrel on the way home, and he took it home in the trunk of his car and skinned it in the backyard. And my brother and I watched it. We were fascinated. And my grandmother was cooking spaghetti for dinner, and because all kids love spaghetti.
Hell yeah.
But I was like,
I
why
still
does
love
this spaghetti have shredded beef in it? What? She's never had shredded meat in this spaghetti before. And then I
Did you
said,
not have time
"Hey,"
for meatballs? Like
I
it's
was
just
like-
shredded.
Then I asked my brother, "Hey, where did that rabbit go? Oh no, where did the squirrel go? Because wasn't it in that red container in the refrigerator?" And then I looked in the red container and it was empty, and I was like, "Oh snap, my grandmother." This.
But was it good?
I mean, but here's the thing,
It was
Was it
stringy, and it was. It tasted kind of like.
They
It tasted kind of like a strong stew beef.
see, and that is what if any of you have ever had wild game before, it has a little bit of that pungent kind of wild flavor to it. I don't even know how to fucking describe it, but it is different.
Here's my theory on that.
What's that?
I feel like that's how meat is supposed to taste.
Yes.
Because the meat that we buy,
We get some
is
wild
grown,
meat. Yeah.
right, in a factory.
Yeah.
But this gamey taste, people say, I bet that's the natural taste.
Well, but what about
Probably.
what do you think about like Kobe beef in Japan, where they feed like it's not just
Yeah.
that they have this cow, it's not like a meat cow that's been raised. I mean, it has been raised for slaughter, but they massage it, they feed it beer. This cow lived a really, really good life, and you can tell within its meat. So it's like
Yeah, I almost feel
wild
like
meat and the most.
I mean, I almost feel like that I feel bad that we didn't come up with that because that's the most American fucking cow that I've ever met.
Well,
Right.
we
You
have
know,
our.
Massages.
A life of just pleasure.
We do have our version of that. I can't remember what it's called, but Americans have their version
We
of
do have
Kobe
an
beef.
American
It's
Kobe.
called something. I can't remember what
Yeah.
it is. But we don't feed it Japanese beer. We
No.
feed it American beer.
Right.
'Cause
They do that with veal too.
veal
Oh, do they?
is. Have you ever had it?
I've had veal before. I know
Do you
it's,
feel bad about it?
Yeah, because it's
a
it's
baby?
the young cow. I mean,
You wouldn't eat a baby cow?
well, I mean,
You
I've
did
thought
eat a
about
baby
it.
cow.
I ate it. It was some veal parmesan.
Oh, veal parmesan's fire.
love
right?
me
some
veal
Oh my
parmesan.
god, I wish I had
many
veal
baby
parmesan
cows?
right now.
You don't
Yeah.
even know if that baby squirrel had a family. That baby squirrel could have been a baby. Who
Listen,
gives
all
a
I know-
shit, man,
I
they're
w-
just animals.
I was hoping that you told me it tasted good because there's a family of squirrels that think that this house is their house,
Okay.
and they got another thing coming.
They got another thing. They did steal some insulation from our attic.
I'm a firm believer in like
They can't stay.
I was raised as a city
We're eating the spaghetti.
as a house cat, but As people have told me, like I have very redneck dreams. Like I have a bow. I want to either like harvest and get my own food to the point where it's like maybe that's meat's supposed to taste like. Like, do you want? Joe Rogan's put it this way before. Do you want an animal that's been pumped full of drugs and lived in captivity? Or do you want like an athlete animal that's not running around? And then what's less cruel? I mean, if you tell me you're gonna keep me in a cell, fatten me up, and I don't really get to run around, or I'm gonna run around and then I get hit or I get shot one day without knowing I lived a good life, I'll take the latter. Like if I don't want to,
Nobody wants to live in a cell.
I can feel that. I would too. And I can see how that would be more nutritious for you too, because all the energy the animal has is getting passed on to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you like your steak?
Mid-rare.
Mid-rare?
Yeah.
I just got into medium rare not too long ago.
How do you like it?
I like it. I understand it better.
Yeah.
I understand it better.
The necessity, the iron and all of that kind of
especially well done.
stuff.
Like the blood becomes like a sauce, like a juice more than blood. I think a lot of people are afraid, but it's like with the seasoning, like the seasoning soaks in there and everything.
Yeah.
And then you can mix it with the rice. Oh, like steak and some rice, the juice, like, there's this
mashed potatoes.
One of my favorite dishes from Peru is bistec a lo pobre, which bistec is beef. It's an anglicized Spanish. Bistec comes from beef steak, bistec. And it's kind of like a steak au poivre, but it's South American. It's rice, steak, fried plantains, and a sunny side up egg on it. And you mix that everything. It's so
that
good.
sounds, boy, you better
It's
take your
so
cholesterol
good,
medicine first. But man, that sounds good.
It's like I have it with a big glass of red wine.
Like I always say, you got to die of something,
Right, right.
My mom also says, people die on the day, not on the eve,
My nanny used to say, you got to eat a pound of dirt before you die.
A pound of dirt? Why a pound as opposed to half a pound?
Well, but I think, so what my mom always said to me, because I never really understood that when I was a kid, because I was like, holy shit, when I ingest a pound of dirt, someday I'm just going to fucking drop dead. But no, it's like over the course of your life, you will have ingested a pound of dirt. Did you know that?
I didn't know
it hurt
that.
you? You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, if you died and if you ate a pound of dirt by the time you died, what are you tripping on so much? You know what I mean? Like things are not like everything is dirty. Literally everything is dirty.
I mean, we have it
the
pretty
idea
good.
that things are clean is an illusion that we bring into our heads. When vegetables come out of the fucking ground and everything is
Makes sense.
dirty.
Makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think she's a wise woman. She also said
Yeah.
never mix perfumes and only tarts wear red.
Only tarts wear red?
This is
Only
advice.
tarts wear red. Oh, man, I've heard something. Here's another one. Only, how did the lady say it? Only, I think she said only gay women wear pants.
Only lesbians wear pants?
Yeah, only lesbians
But you know what?
wear
That's so
pants.
funny. Was she 97 years old? Because that is a very...
When she told me she was, well, if she was still alive today, I think she would be in her 90s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, women weren't really like... I think
No.
that people, because of the internet, we think that things have been this way for a long time.
Yeah.
They have not.
No, they haven't.
They have
Lesbians were not a thing, and certainly not women wearing pants. You know
No.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, you wore a skirt like a good girl.
You wore a skirt like a good girl because there's nothing else available to you. You know what I mean? Pants were not even in a place where you could acquire them.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I think in this day and age of the internet, we forget that we all used to grow our own food, and it was very common for a regular family, just an average American family, to have a garden.
The
in their
family
back.
cow, you know?
The family
Yeah, I see
cow,
you all
all
have
of these things.
this. It's
Yeah,
nice.
it's why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? You have to feed your family, and you've got a patch of grass out back.
Yeah.
Like, seeds are cheap.
Yeah, thankfully I come
So-
from a line of farmers.
Do you?
So my mother gardens, my grandparents
That's
had
awesome.
several gardens. So
Nice.
Do you garden?
I do. I picked up a lot of things from my grandparents. My
You
great
probably
grandfather, he
appreciate
had
that.
I can. He's the one that had the whole farm, like 50 acres or something. And then
The beer
That's
drinking
awesome.
grandfather?
my great grandfather.
Oh, your great grandfather.
It's our dream, you know?
Yeah.
It's our dream to get some land and kind of like do the whole
Just
thing.
yeah,
Not be farmers. We'll be content creators because you can't survive as a farmer. But
not anymore.
you can do different. You can do a lodge, like
But
for all
the
the tech
very-
yuppies.
But the idea that we can have, our own cow, our own goat, and these sort of things that we can appreciate in our world that are not pumped full of hormones and other things like that.
And if you get a goat, you don't have to cut your grass. They'll eat the grass.
Word, that's why I want one. We had a goat when I was a kid, and I was just telling our last guest. I said that you remember the Boo ghost from Mario?
I do.
And that if you were facing him, it was all chill.
Yeah.
But as
yeah,
soon
yeah,
as you
turn
turned your
around.
back, he was like, bam! That's what that goat was like.
Goats
That
are
goat was
funny.
a dick. And I don't know if all goats are like that, but I like to think that they are because I think that they're all just a bunch of boo ghosts. They're just waiting for you to turn your back so they
Yeah.
can wreck you.
That's right.
Just
Boo
rock
goats?
you. Boo,
Boo
goats.
goats.
Boo
Boo
goats.
goats. So Wafeeq, let me bring it back to, you mentioned, I think it was at the top. We've got it down an animal segment way, which I love, by the way. We love animals. And
We just like talking shit,
Yeah, we said medium rare steaks.
yeah, exactly.
And got on goats after that.
But you started improv and then you did comedy. How long have you been doing each? And then what is it? And you mentioned you have a company. What do you do it? What's that drives you, and what's what you want to get out of it? Maybe.
Well, whose was Wafeeq Zarif?
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good question. I think all of us have to really learn who we are individually.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yes.
sometimes it takes a long time to figure that out.
I say there's no way to fail at life if you're being yourself. Because you're not gonna live your life like I am, or me the other way, right?
Right.
There may
And
be
you
some
wouldn't expect
similarities,
it.
right?
Exactly.
I do think it's interesting because I think that there is, a certain attitude. I don't even know if attitude, but a rhetoric that's going on right now that I should experience life as Wafeeq.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or
But let's circle back
as-
on that. Let's figure out what Wafeeq wants first.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
who is
Yeah.
Wafeeq?
Okay.
This is
No,
Andy
I just mean-
Tangents right now.
It is Andy Tangents. No, I
Okay.
guess I'm curious, what is the human experience?
Can we have him answer the first
Yes,
question
go
first?
ahead. This
Please?
isn't Casa de Thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I started doing comedy in 2009 at Comedy Works in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah. I like their setup. They have a good setup.
Yeah. It was at the old building, Peace Street. So I started there because I wanted to get on stage and do something. I knew I wanted to be a performer when I was in high school. I just didn't really know how, didn't really have the outlet. And then I went to college, and a friend of mine named Tyrone Hicks and I would do these little comedic scenes out in public where we would be in line at a Subway. And I would just look to him and I would say, yeah, my brother, you see right there that the way they got the white American cheese on top of the brown steak. Why don't they put the brown steak that symbolizes the black man in America on top of the white American cheese? And he looked back at me, you right, you exactly right, my brother.
Seeing this.
Right. Why they want to put flavor on the wheat bread? The wheat bread alone is enough. And we would just go back and forth, and the workers would look at us like, "What? I just want to know what kind of cheese you want on this." We would terrify him, and he'd say, "Hey, man, he was a theater major. He said you ought to take this improv class."
Hell yeah.
Improv acting class, because I said, all right, I'll do it because I needed an easy.
Your
A.
major wasn't
What
in
was your
theater.
major? Yeah.
No, I was a mass communications major.
Okay.
Nice. Hey, that's in
Well,
line.
I mean, still, yeah.
Yeah, I needed to get my GPA up, so I took it.
Yeah.
And they taught me about acting, and it was improv, the fundamental concept of improv, which is yes and.
Okay.
So, like earlier.
I've heard that. I've never taken an improv class, but I've heard that you can't say no.
Yeah.
Whatever the situation is, you need to say something affirming to
Right.
that so that the
Right.
scene keeps going.
Saying no is a high level advanced technique. You definitely don't want to say no in the beginning.
Okay.
But like earlier when I said,
Technique.
earlier when I said, I hate peanuts,
Uh-huh.
and then you could respond with, you have to accept that. We say yes and. You don't have to literally say yes and, but yes is
Yeah,
more of
an
a
affirmation
concept.
of some kind.
You
Yeah.
affirm what I said. Yes, you do hate peanuts, and I also hate peanuts.
I
Let's-
recognize the reality that you're living in, and I'm down for it too. And
Yeah.
let's
That's right.
expand on this.
You could be like,
idea.
you hate peanuts, but my father was a peanut. So
That's right.
I
You
don't
have
think
to
kind of
add
like
to
My
that.
father was Mr. Peanut, sir.
Right. So you added on top of it, and now I'm going to accept that
Okay.
and add on top of that, and we just build from there,
Interesting.
right?
It's like building a story.
Right, exactly. And before we know it, and it's all about the relationship. It's not really about the peanuts. It's about how we feel about each
Sure.
other. And so I learned that stuff in the class with him, and some theater majors told me to come to this meeting for the theater fraternity. And
in North Carolina, or is it somewhere else?
This was Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Oh, okay, cool.
'Cause I'm from Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh,
So
okay.
Oh, okay.
You're
Yeah,
a
they are.
transplant.
yeah.
Do they feel like you're a traitor because you moved to North Carolina?
No, I don't. I feel like I escaped.
Because
And,
I really wonder how
Escaped.
people from like two states that is
Virginia
like
and
north
West
and
Virginia?
south, you know,
Yeah.
like
South Dakota
I
and
don't
North
have no
Dakota?
frame of reference, so I wonder if there's any rivalry
Is
ever
there?
there.
Nah, I don't
Oh,
think
okay,
so.
cool.
I don't think so. I think all the rivalry is deep. It's internal in South Carolina. I don't
I
think
thought it was
there's
in
really-
football.
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
internal. I don't think growing up, people looked at North Carolina as a more advanced city state.
Oh, yeah?
Something
Really?
Like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so interesting because I don't know, because in my mind, South Carolina, you know, they have I don't know if they're nicer beaches. I've actually never been to the beach here, but I've heard of like the Outer Banks or whatever, that they're better for like fishing and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's North
like,
Carolina.
That's what I'm saying. And so like the South Carolina beaches are supposed to be more like,
Tourists, Myrtle
yeah,
Beach.
yeah. So are their beaches nicer than North Carolina? So they shit on us a little bit?
I don't think.
Or like, what's the
so.
rules for being mean to the other state?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Here's one. North Carolina sometimes has an identity crisis. I know some people in South Carolina look at North Carolinians as you all are wishy-washy and don't know what you want because you voted for Obama in 2008. Where in South Carolina, we know who we are. We're a red state, always been one.
So we're wishy-washy.
Yeah, you all are a purple state. What is that? Pick a color. And
Yeah.
you're in the South. It should be red.
Yeah, trust me, I grew up in Florida, and yeah. It's,
Yeah, that's one thing I like about being here because growing up, presidential elections would come. I remember my first presidential election, 1988, and we're all excited. Yeah, get to vote for Jesse Jackson if you want, or vote for Michael Dukakis, and then be disappointed on election night. Year after year after year, it doesn't matter. The governor will be Republican. The president, your state, will vote for the Republican. So
Yeah.
then, because I didn't understand the way the electoral college votes are and all stuff, so moving here, I do feel like my vote actually matters
Really?
in elections. Whereas in South Carolina, by the time I got to high school, I was jaded. You know, we all felt like it's not going to matter because
so
we're always going to
interesting.
vote red.
It's so interesting. I never I don't know. I guess I always thought and hoped, and I still do, that no matter what, I hope my vote matters, no matter where I am. I don't think it really usually does, but I want to hope. You know what I mean? But it's the same sort of thing as like.
well, it depends what kind of vote, right? Like, it definitely matters in your local elections.
Yeah.
It does for that.
Matters in your local.
It does for that.
Do you know the first time that I ever voted? I was 17, and there was like a local election coming up, and I was feeling really good about it because I was like, I'm going to be so fucking informed that the day that I vote, I'm just going to make the best decision for my community, and they're going to be so proud of me. Like, I was feeling very like civically minded, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it was important to me to like vote in a way that was informed. And then the vote came around, and I found out that I was not in that county, and I could not vote.
Wow, you did not check your
I
registration
did not.
card. You didn't. You got to check that registration card.
Well, but the
Man.
thing of it is like that was back then, before the internet, before that information was super readily available to you. You had to talk to a person in that instance. You know what I mean? It's like, this not like somebody was telling me, hey, you can't vote in this county because even though you live here, you're not in this district. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I was 17. Give me a break. I was trying to be, you know, like I said, like socially responsible. Whatever I was trying to be, it failed.
Well, I'm glad you made it this far.
Well, I mean, after that, I was just so, you know, disappointed. I just never voted again. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So you moved from South Carolina here, right? And then
Yeah.
that's when you after college, right?
No, this was a while after. This
Yeah.
was 2006.
Okay.
So I came here to work for the News and Observer. as a
Oh, no
reporter.
way! And okay,
Get
with
out,
the with the
okay.
communications thing that you.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah. But then people stopped reading newspapers. So
Yeah.
the last one hired was the first one fired and
Yeah,
let
that's
go.
true.
So I got into sales, and then my mother married somebody from here, and he got me a job at the town of Cary. I worked on. So I'm at the newspaper as a reporter, and
Yeah.
then I move into sales,
Yeah.
and then I'm in the town of Cary as a person who rode on the back of the recycling truck picking
Oh,
up your
okay.
recyclables.
How was that?
Oh, okay.
Every day it was interesting because
I was gonna
every
say, it sounds
day,
kind of fun.
yeah, I would pray a lot because I would pray that that there would be an opening on a garbage truck so I could move up. You know, that's the kind of
You
life.
didn't like the recycling truck? What was the difference between the recycling and the garbage
That's
truck?
well. The difference is the garbage truck is an automated machine.
I have noticed that. I have noticed there's a little
didn't know
thing.
that.
Yeah.
We were trying. This is the recycling job is so low that you look up to the garbage guys and try to move up to be a garbage
So
man.
unfair.
Yeah,
why
yeah.
why doesn't the recycling people get
It has one now, but when I was there, 2006, 2005, it was still, they were just now moving into the automated trucks.
I see.
So we were manual. It was one guy who would drive and two guys in the back. And people looked up at me because I had a high school diploma and I could read. And that was a big thing. It was not common on the recycling trucks. I said, wow, what do you mean? Not everybody here has a high school diploma. This guy, the driver of my truck said, man, we can teach a monkey how to throw bottles. I was like, really?
You're like, I feel appreciated at my job.
You're
yeah.
like, enjoy that college degree.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough, man. I had a shard of glass stuck in my finger here for 2 weeks before I knew it. It was
I've heard
bad.
of those kinds of things. My uncle, he was a construction worker, and he said he used to just get like wood splinters in him, and he wouldn't even notice it. And then eventually, his body would just dissolve them, eat
Yep.
them up.
I was
What the
picking at it
hell?
one day and I noticed, whoa, there's glass. And I remember when
Did
we
it push
took in a
its way
bunch of
out?
glass. No, I had to pull it, right? But it was sealing itself in there. And
Yeah,
then
it
I
was.
noticed it.
Glass will
time-
fuck you up. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what
yeah.
fuck you up.
Yeah, one time somebody had in their bin, it was a coffee can full of hypodermic needles. So
Wow.
Oh, why?
I don't know if those are recyclable.
they're not. We
Yeah,
left
yeah.
it back on their front porch.
Yeah, damn.
You're like, you junkies.
Yeah.
You know, not,
Yeah.
you-
Make better choices.
so I imagine that, the garbage persons, people, men, women, then they really hated that rule. Then they must really hate that rule that says you can do the container and up to one bag on top or whatever, right? Is that why it has to be on top? Because the arm then can lift it?
Yeah.
Shit,
I
okay.
mean, we thought their job was so easy.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
we had
yeah.
to lift, run, dump, sort. The
You had
truck,
to sort it?
Yeah, the back of the truck was just bins, and we had to sort by hand. And then we would and then when our sorting bags got full, we had to take the bags down,
Yeah.
tie them off, and figure out ways to stack them
That
in our
is so
truck.
unfair. I don't like this job at all.
There
It
is
was
like
hard, huh?
there's a 100% skit in there, like a Harry Potter crossover with the sorting hat and the sorting bag. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, that sounds so funny
We
to
should
me.
make
Yeah.
that skit, yes.
Yeah.
The Harry Potter sorting recycling.
Yeah, I remember one day hanging upside down in the truck, going through Cary, hanging upside down, tying trying to stomp a big bag full of milk bottles, plastic milk bottles, flatter, so we could squeeze in more and not have to go to the dump. Because the goal is always to pull your whole route without having to go to the dump. So
That
it
makes
was a
sense.
dangerous job.
And that's
I
hard
love
because they
that.
have
Yeah,
the
that's
handle.
hard.
It doesn't let you compact the jugs as easy as like, a plastic bottle.
Well, you should know then that I smash all our stuff before
We
I put it
thank
in
you.
the
We
bin.
definitely
No, and
appreciate
we
I
use
only
it-
do it so I can fill the bag more.
Yeah.
Thank
though.
you.
And we use it for our bunnies. Like bunnies love cardboard.
Yeah, we end up using a lot of our
And we're also
recycling instead of-
composting. Like there's
Fucking reduce, reuse, recycle, man.
Yeah, I always, like everybody worries about like climate change, global warming or whatever. I'm like, grow your own food and do whatever. You could burn garbage outside if you got your food from within a mile of yourself.
Yeah.
And then that would probably be a net positive, but,
Yeah.
we're
Who
not willing to
knows?
do that. Because we're not willing to do hard things anymore. It's all instant gratification.
Now, I cook a lot, and people tell me I'm crazy for cooking.
Yeah.
When
I
I
hear
tell
that,
them the
yeah.
stuff that I'm doing to cook.
Wait, what do you mean? Is it different than normal cooking or?
No, regular
Okay.
stuff. I
Okay.
made my macaroni and cheese from scratch, or I
Yeah.
baked biscuits from scratch, or I'm
Nice.
going to make some French fries by cutting up some potatoes, or I'm making
Nice.
my marinara sauce for my spaghetti. This
I
is
get
insane
that.
to
Hell
me.
yeah.
I feel like just from what I've seen, the newest generation, they don't seem to even know how to do anything other than order DoorDash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, I will literally starve if I don't have this food that I need from this place." I'm like, "You've got a stove and this refrigerator. Fill it up." Like, people don't know how to cook anymore.
No, they
It's
don't.
like a mystery to
Yeah,
them.
no, it's a life skill. I think everybody should learn how to cook.
Well, obviously, yeah, we're humans. We need food
Mm-hmm.
to live, and we can't
Just to
even
be
if-
free. Like, how can you be free if you can't feed yourself, if you don't know how to push comes to shove, right? We have fiat money or whatever, right? Power goes out, right? Like, if you have no way of feeding yourself over a long time, I mean, like, if you have no security, it's like the art of self-reliance, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, and we live in a, industrialized nation, right? So to some degree, but I don't know. I think there's even it's even nurturing to oneself to be capable of doing things. I don't know.
It is.
agree.
It is. And it was born out of necessity for my brother and I,
Mm-hmm.
because my mother moved us out of the city early, and she wanted us to live in the country.
Okay.
And so I was bored out of my mind. I hated it. Couldn't
Yeah.
stand it. Couldn't walk down the street, go to a store. So
Yeah.
she would go to work and leave us at home during the summer. And we didn't have cable TV. We had 4 channels: ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, and PBS.
PBS,
And we
yes.
would watch a show called The Frugal Gourmet.
I love the Frugal Gourmet. Yes.
Yeah, we would just watch that, and it would fascinate us, and we'd get ideas for cooking.
Yeah.
Then after the Frugal Gourmet, it was this guy that had a white guy with a beard, and he had a perm, and he would be painting. And we would watch him for 3 seconds and say, well, we're just going to watch this and then change the channel. But
Yeah,
before you know it, he was like, all right, there's some funny trees. Your trees. You can do whatever you
Happy
want
trees,
with the
yes.
happy trees. He would rope us in, and we
Yes.
would watch the whole episode and be so soothed.
Yes.
And so we, after a while, we'd have to get up and find food, and we would have no choice but to cook.
Those things that you had
Yeah.
heard about.
Yeah, so we would just learn to cook that way.
Fucking love that, man. Like PBS, a bitch be learning.
And,
Yeah.
and I love that, like, obviously you got moved into, so you had the contrast, which made us more bored, but it sounds like it's like incredible life skill. And do you look on that positively that you were able, maybe you
I
didn't like
do.
it at the
I
time,
do.
but now
you've
looking
got,
back
like,
on
a-
it.
Yes, it
Like a
developed
secret
a
skill.
love for cuisine for me and culinary arts, and I learned I would study as much as I could about food, and especially for me. I know I mentioned earlier, I asked you how you like your steak. For me as
Yeah,
a
yeah,
black
yeah.
person, I'm going to educate you about black people, because
Yeah.
I know I've got a feeling at least one of them will watch this show,
Yeah.
this podcast. Growing up, it was always well done steaks,
Well done.
well done meats. And
I know some black people.
Yeah,
And apparently Latinos too. Like my dad is the one. Like my parents always knew, like, were like to eat and like knew about it. So to me, I thought mid rare was normal, right?
Yeah.
But like a lot of Hispanic and I know black people, medium well done. Medium well is the lowest it'll go. No, so that's incredibly insightful.
I got exposed to more by studying cuisine. And do you know why we always do well done?
Why?
There was an Asian guy, 2017. I was in the Carolina Ale House. No, 2018.
We just ordered from there like last night, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got good
Buffalo
chocolate cake.
fries.
I was there one night, and he asked me, because we built some good rapport. He said, "Hey, sir, can I ask you a question?"
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't mean to be racist or anything, but
Yeah.
can you please tell me, why do my black customers come in here and order their steaks well done? Because to me, that's like eating a rubber shoe."
Well,
And I
and
said,
a legit question. He wanted to know.
he did. He was an Asian guy,
Honest.
and I said, "Sit down and let's go on a journey." And so I had been thinking about this, because I got a backstory and a lot of thoughts on it. I was working at a place called Tortilla Blue. It was in Cary, on the main.
I've heard the
street,
name, I
right?
think.
I don't know.
I think now
it
it's in
exist?
some kind of regular
Or maybe I've
restaurant.
just heard blue tortillas.
Right. And
Blue waffles. You know.
the executive chef was he used to be married to my second stepfather's third daughter.
Okay.
Crazy, right? My
We'll
mom,
draw the family tree. out
Right,
here.
right.
That's
It was
right.
my
And
second
everybody will be
stepdad.
like, huh?
I had two stepdads, and he was married to my second stepdad's his daughter, and they were long since divorced, so we were cool, right? And he's Muslim,
Yeah.
and he's black.
Yeah.
And so he was the executive chef. And one day I'm in the kitchen and he was cooking some steak. He cut it up for the tortillas. And I'm looking at it thinking, oh, there's blood coming out of the steak. Why is this meat so red? This is what black people always wonder. How do white people eat like this? Because this is insane to us.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, Wafeeq, come over here and taste the steak and tell me how you like it. I was like,
No thanks.
I'm not eating it. He said, dude, I'm married. He was like, dude, I used to be married to your stepfather's daughter, man. And I'm black and I'm Muslim. Do you think I'm going to steer you wrong?
Trust me, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, man.
Were
I've
you like-
never eaten this. I said, this is what white people eat. And he's like, dude, just trust me and eat this steak. So I closed my eyes and he said, it's not blood. I closed my eyes and I ate it. And it was like I was eating steak for the first time in my life.
So
All
buttery,
these new
wasn't
flavor
it? You're like,
compounds came
so
out of nowhere. And I was like, yo, what is this?
yes.
I've never had steak this good in my life, man.
That's
It blew
amazing.
me out of the water. And I was like, yo, man, this is delicious. And he said it's delicious because we haven't cooked all the flavor out and stuff like that. And he said, all right, listen, if you look at big cats, the reason why part of why they're so muscular is because there's a lot of nutrients in the blood, right?
Yeah.
And because they're eating all of their meat raw, they
Yes.
get 100% of the nutrients. And he said, we can't do that, of course, but you get more flavor and more nutrients when you don't cook all of the juices and everything
So it's
out.
digestible
It's
enough,
like-
but still closer to that raw
Yeah,
spectrum.
it's
Right,
like
right.
eating raw vegetables versus cooked
Right.
vegetables. You're gonna have more of those nutrients.
I mean, it
essentially.
is chemistry at the end. You're adding energy to, and compounds are reacting, right?
And like, what is that? It's like a tribe that drinks cow blood. They
Yeah.
don't eat the cow. They drink their blood and they mix it with milk.
Yep.
And it's
I've heard of
just
that.
protein
Blood
They do that
and
in the
milk.
Philippines.
and yeah, I don't know where it is, but either way, like I understand it. I don't want to do it.
I had a really
because it
dirty
sounds
joke
real
about that.
high in iron. You
But
know?
for me, though,
that
getting
metallic
over,
take.
I had to wrap my mind around what I thought was blood. He said it's not blood, it's the juices from the meat, like you would cook any other thing that releases juices. They haven't all been cooked out.
Yeah.
And he said as long as it comes to the right temperature, the pathogens in it are killed, so it's safe to
Safe
eat.
to eat.
And you don't need to cook it. You reach that temperature when it is still pink and somewhat red. You don't need to go past that to kill the pathogens on the inside. But he said on the outside, you want to cook that to a nice sear to kill the pathogens on the outside.
Exactly. It's like hamburger because hamburger has more capability to have
Pathogens.
exactly because it's been ground.
Yep.
And it really-
Whereas with a steak, we've only got
Yeah, and it's
outside.
really about killing those pathogens that get you sick because a lot of people similarly, for example, approach in Peru, ceviche is a big thing. They're like
Yeah.
raw fish or whatever. Well, it's not really raw because the acidity, even though it's not a heat, is cooking, and sanitizing those pathogens out. And just, it's just a chemical cook instead of a heat cook.
Can Muslims eat shellfish?
Yeah, we can. We
Okay.
can. That was just something that was handed to the Jewish people.
I don't know.
And so, yeah, that's how I ate my first medium rare steak. And then, speaking of hamburger, he told me, I said, well, what about hamburger? Because
Yeah,
I've
'cause
seen
there's
Bobby
more,
Flay
yeah.
do a hamburger medium rare. He said, okay, with hamburger, when you go buy your ground beef, it just says ground beef. You don't know what cuts of the cow are in that ground beef.
right.
So when it comes to something like that, it's mystery meat. You want to go ahead and cook that all the way to well done because you don't know what cuts of the cow are used. But then he said, but if you do know what cuts are in the ground beef, if you control it, like some restaurants,
Like restaurants,
they say,
yeah.
our burgers are made
Angus
from
or
Yeah.
right sirloin and brisket.
Yeah,
He
sirloin
said,
burger,
if you
yeah.
know the cuts, it's okay to
So
cook
that's
that
why.
to medium rare or medium well or something like that. But outside of that, he said if it just says ground beef, cook that medium well to be not medium well, but well done to be on the safe side.
Oh,
So when I was a kid, we did a lot of deer meat.
Yeah.
And my dad had his own grinder. We would grind up our own meat. But we mixed it with hamburger. Specifically because, like we were talking about earlier, it's like wild game and all that kind of stuff. They don't have a very high fat content.
Yeah.
And so it can make the meat taste like, I don't know, it's just dry.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean? So if you mix it with that hamburger meat, it's just enough fat to kind of marble it in. It's delicious.
Yeah, I've had-
I'll eat some deer chili. Hell yeah, it's delicious.
Deer sausage,
Spaghetti.
I've had that.
Deer. Have you ever had deer summer sausage?
No, what's that?
It's deer. It's deer made into summer sausage, and it's so.
What's summer?
Summer sausage? It's like, I mean, like the equivalent of like pepperoni or something. It's like a smoked meat, so it's shelf stable. You could leave it on like, it's like pepperoni. It's a smoked meat.
Speaking of shelf stable, right? Like this is one thing I've noticed, and and it has been recently, especially when I moved to Texas and North Carolina. The white people do it is leave their butter out.
Oh, I do that.
To get it soft.
Do you?
Yeah,
do you
no,
do that?
out indefinitely, just out. It's not going in the fridge.
Never.
And I
into
think
the
it's
fridge.
disgusting. I understand taking it out
because I
little bit.
literally do that. But my parents always did it. Is that not a thing?
No, but I
there?
think I looked a little bit into it, and I think you have to do it with unpasteurized butter, or like the more natural one can be left, but the one that you buy at the grocery store can't.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
throw it away.
I put
I've
mine
never
in the fridge,
died.
but I take it out when I know I'm going to use
Yeah.
it.
I just keep it in a butter dish because
your-
that's what people used to do back in the. I mean, you think about it, and it's like we talked about like different things that happen before we knew that it was like standard for
Yeah.
how we do things, like refrigerators and things like that. Those are new to what we're doing with things like milk. In other places are shelf stable and some like unpasteurized and stuff like that. So I guess I don't know.
A lot of it is cultural too,
Is it?
and this is what
White people just be leaving their butter out on the counter.
right. And it is a
My family
legitimate
always
reason
has.
for that.
Why?
And I told the Asian guy in Carolina Ale House on Wake Forest Road. I sat him down after I told him the story I told you all about how I ate medium rare. I had to bring it home and tell him why black people typically don't do that. Because when I tell my mom this, she says, I don't care. I'm not going to do it. It just has to be well done. Here's the reason why.
Why?
Traditionally, in this country, where we started, black people started as slaves. The slaves were not going to be given the best cuts of meat and the best cuts of food. So a lot of things, the best food in the world, first of all, to me, comes from poor people. Poor people eat from what is around them.
Hell yeah,
and
and
they
they make it
figure out
taste
how to make it good out
delicious.
of necessity.
Necessity is the mother of
Right.
invention. Yeah.
Yes.
Ribs were not considered to be good in this country until the, I'd say the mid 20th century. That's when ribs started to come around. But ribs had been used by the slaves because the slave master would take the loin, take the high quality cuts, and just leave the chitlins and the head, the ears, the feet, and the ribs and scraps
Arguably
from
the most
slaves.
tender places too. By like
Right.
that cabeza meat, like that shit
Right.
is the best part.
And the slaves figured out, well, if I cook this at a low temperature for a long time, it'll tenderize
tender.
it.
Yeah.
And that's how we got ribs today, right?
Okay.
So they were taking poor
love ribs.
leftovers
Yeah,
and
they-
stuff, right? But the problem is, because it's low quality, you can't really trust it. And going back to what he said about the ground beef, you don't know what cut it is. So traditionally, black people had to cook their meat in this country well done.
Makes sense.
Because we weren't given the better cut, the quality cuts.
Yeah.
And here's another side story. My second stepfather's from New Jersey. He told me plenty of times about a guy that was not black he worked for who was running the meat market, and they would get trains of meat being brought in. And he said when they would come across a rail cart with rotten meat, the guy would tell him, pour blood on the rotten meat and sell it just to the colored folks. But the fresh meat, give that one to the white people. So this is the
Pour
kind of
blood
meat.
on it. Ah.
Right.
To
This is-
cover up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then it makes sense that black people would recognize that, and we're not stupid. We know that you're doing something terrible, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we're still gonna buy it, but we're just gonna
'cause they had
cook it
to.
low and slow.
Yeah,
you
and,
know?
and because of this,
Interesting.
being given the
I've never
poor
heard that
quality,
before.
we had to cook it well done to make sure we killed the pathogens and it was safe to eat. And that's something that just got, even though we've moved past that to where we don't have
Nobody-
to, it just got passed on as custom. So to the point where we cook it well done and we don't even know why. But this is how it started.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've never heard that before. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what the Asian guy in the ale house said.
Well,
Heard that before.
and-
I really appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, and thank you for the insight because it's very interesting. I think in the mainstream conversation, culture is almost spoken about so limited, like fucking paintings and relics and all this other shit. And Andy mentioned this to me the other day, and maybe you can relate. I don't know, to with your own culture was. Yeah, like are Hispanic people overall like what does language do to the development of culture, right? And then I am a kind of like outspoken, maybe somewhat abrasive, like let's say if I'm in a group of white people, right? Especially in North Carolina, right? In South Florida, I grew up in South Florida. Everybody's like white, black, and Hispanic, right? Like it's all intermixed. Only when I moved to different places like Boston or Texas or Pennsylvania, where you see really the segmentation and the segregation, even sometimes self-segregation, right? But my way of communication, we had like people don't take into account that the way you communicate, right, may be very cultural, right? Like maybe, I'm not a loud person. It is part of my culture that is not as easily or it's not as accepted as culture as much as like when we're thinking about being culturally aware, right? And being welcoming of everybody's cultures. It seems like sometimes in the mainstream, but you can't speak this way. It's like, well, what if that part is cultural, right? Like,
I grew up with a lot of Arabs. In the Arab culture, they talk loud and they talk with their hands and they look like they're fighting.
Sounds angry, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of
They're
times,
excited.
right? When I've seen groups of Arab men talk to each other, and people get nervous around them that think they're gonna fight, and they have to stop and tell everybody, no, this is just how we talk in Arab culture. This is the way it is.
Yeah, and I think that should be understood more, especially in the world that we live in. That apparently everybody's so welcoming, right? But not when it comes to that. It seems like with that's not as culturally, I don't know. I guess I myself have run into it. Hispanic people as well, we're loud, joyous people, right? Friendly and very passionate. Sometimes you've even said to me, I'm like, yeah, I get hot, but it's like, or like we'll shit at each other, but that's the camaraderie, right?
Right.
It is the fact that it is not hateful, that we have no ill intent and no hate, that we're able to speak as freely,
Yeah.
I think you get a lot of that in comics a little bit, and that's what I love about comedy, that it's like, overall, at least comics that I find funny, like, they know we're busting balls, and it's like, the culture is like, what's funniest is what's going to be said, even if it's hyperbole, even if it's an
Right,
exaggeration.
Yeah.
It's like that in the black community too. They call it traditionally. It's been called playing the dozens.
Playing the
Oh,
dozens.
I've never heard that. I like that.
It's
How's
busting balls.
Oh,
We're gonna
playing
just
the
crack
dozens.
jokes on each other back.
That's
and
what
forth.
this episode is going to be called, Playing the Dozens.
Yeah. It was a show called Good Times that came out in
Yeah.
the 70s, and they did a
Good
whole
times.
episode on that.
Yeah, I love
On
it.
playing the dozens, and it was a white city worker who came to their home, who was talking to them, and they were playing the dozens with each other, and this person was clutch the pearls, terrified,
Really?
and they had to
Okay.
explain, no, this is what we do. This is part of the culture.
Do you know what? That's so interesting because I haven't thought about Good Times in so long. They had a lot of very like
Yeah,
real situations where they were like, I don't know, TV can touch you,
Yeah. Good Times didn't make it to South America when I was a kid, but the Cosby Show did. Like, it's only, like,
I watched Good Times. We watched the Cosby Show too, though.
so I'm 37. Growing up in the 90s in Peru, it's like now things were released worldwide everywhere, right? But back then, it used to be 4 years at least in cinema, right? A movie, The Lion King, goes out 4 years later because they have to ship the reels, then they have to dub them, right? And do all this
That makes
production work
sense.
so that it's in Spanish, heard, right? So a lot of America, America has, pop out culture or at least media everywhere, right? And it was, so you get, Good Times didn't come through, Living Color didn't come through, but Cosby Show, like Alf, Who's the Boss, with Tony Danza.
yeah.
Stuff like that, and it's funny because a lot of times there's so many holes. The Goonies never made it to South America,
And
the
that's such a
cultural
thing.
hole is just, white, black culture, American culture that, okay, yeah, I came here and I, pretty much since like 11, 12 or 13, right? But those young things, from 0 to 10 or 12 and 13,
Yeah.
I have like a lot of gaping holes in there,
I thought Alf was real until I was 16.
Get the fuck out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just thought he was, there's no way for this thing not to be real because he's so cool.
Yeah.
And he's so quick with it. This
I got an
thing's
Alf
gotta
doll
be
in the
real.
other room, one of the old school ones.
Yeah. And he wanted to eat the cat. That was
I
funny.
love that.
And you were
growing
like,
up.
I
Yeah, yeah,
identify with that.
Yes, cat and squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
I mean, we ate some squirrel when I was a kid, but nobody hit him with a car. It was just a normal staple in my house. So.
Okay, all right.
And do you know what I learned about that?
What?
I don't like eating squirrel, and not because I don't like the like what you were talking about. I understand the stringy meat and all that kind of stuff, and like when we would eat it, it didn't necessarily taste bad to me, but it was just so much fucking work with all the tiny bones that I was just like, I'm gonna leave it. You know what I mean? If I've got to do this much work, it's not worth it.
Right.
So,
Right.
but also child brain. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you
today-
eat crab legs?
I don't like crab because it's
'Cause
too
of the
much
work,
work.
right?
It's too much fucking work. And every time I've ever been to go eat crab with somebody else, like my friend Piper, she loves crab and she'll just be sitting across from me, squirt me with crab juice. You know what I mean? Like every which way. And I'm like, I don't want to go eat crab with you. It's messy. It's everywhere. It's too much work. And I don't like the payoff is not what I'm looking for. You know? I'll eat
My
things-
dad would argue with you, would disagree
What?
with that. Because he'd be like, yeah, no, it's the flavor. You got to get it. But in Peru, they serve it like it's within a soup. And then there's like crab like
rather eat it
sticking
with
out
the
of it.
soup.
So you get the soup and the flavor, but then you still get to like,
So that's very funny because I say I like things cooked with crab in it, like a seafood stock or something like that. Hell yeah, I'll drink that all day, but I'm not gonna work hard for it. I'm not working for this crab. I'm not working for this squirrel.
That's just your white privilege, baby.
It's not my white privilege. What it is, we ate squirrel. What white privilege? That's white poor people. Okay.
Yeah, but notice that you said you shot and hunted it. So with the less privileged people, they just had to hope they could get some roadkill
They
squirrel.
just hit it. I see. But we were so poor. Like, can we not? We had 7 of us though.
Well, at the end of the day, right? Like the things do try to control us because I mean, especially coming from like somebody that we just like stepped into this race war, right? Like we were like, it's like the white people conquered our South America too, and we don't have the cultural, connection to it. Like we weren't fucking even here. My ancestors weren't here. My ancestors were Incas, or Spaniards that raped Incas, like one or the other. But
It's all intermixed.
it seems like now, especially, it seems like it's about the money. It's like things become to seem like the racial impact that I might receive is less the more money I have.
It's like an
and-
insulation, a money insulation.
But it's, like Sun Tzu, right? The Art of War. It's very easy to create division and have people treat each other as the other. When I'd argue that poor whites, poor blacks, and poor Latinos have more in common than each other than, they have in common with rich whites, rich blacks, and rich Latinos, even though within each section they might have a connection, right? Like,
So really, it's a class divide, not a racial divide.
It is.
It's the
it is.
poors and the haves and the have-nots.
But
right?
and then it's hard to like distill the history, right? Because we talked about culture earlier, right? And even what happened with slavery, it's like such a targeted attack, moving children away, separating families, like where you're like, there's so many Smiths, Freeman, like where it's like, okay, like it's like, where is my history? Where like did I come from, right? A general location, but what does that do over generations, right? And how does that put you in, let's say, crippled state from the starting line to it's like, okay, well, run with your legs tied together. It's not a fair race,
Yeah, it makes you disconnected from your origin, and it makes you more connected to where you currently are. And where you currently are could still be under the oppression. So if you don't know where you came from, where you are seems like it's home.
I like what you just said. That's very insightful. That it disconnects you from your origin, and because that you're connected where you currently are, and especially if you're in a bad
Yeah.
situation or it's being or still oppressed.
Yeah, if I was to enslave you, I'd want you connected to me, not your ancestry.
Right.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And you just made me think of something too, man, when you were talking about the differences in the poor black people, Latinos,
Yeah.
and white people have more in common. And then you just said it's a class divide, right? The thing to keep in mind about that and be careful of in as we talk to people
Yeah.
is to understand that there are some things that transcend that commonality based on class. And
Yeah.
what popped into my head when you were talking is something I hear from people a lot. Well, then why do these poor rednecks go and vote Republican? They're voting against their own self-interest, right?
Yeah.
Because they should be voting for a party that's not all about big business is going to help rich people. And it makes you wonder, why do they do that? The reason they do that is because they have values that are more important to them than money. But
100%, right?
Yeah.
And we as I mentioned, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Adjustment Bureau.
I have.
Right? He's like, when the angel's like, pick a color, red. He's like, pick a number, 43. And the other guy's like, he's just tricking you. He's like, because he made it about a choice. And in a sense, he polarized you. You were not going to pick anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're forced to pick this side or the other, right? I do think most people overall are somewhere in the center and balance, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten here, without destroying each other. But if you tell me, I want to polarize you on this or this, right? Then you're right. I think that there are certain things that are more important to them because, liberalism, progressiveness is to advance, right? But conservativeness maintains what works, right? And it's a balance of it all. And I do agree. I tell Andy that, and think you just made me think of it, that Latinos overall are much more conservative than, for example, than you would think. They come from religious countries, most of them, right? They're, especially in 2022, they're much more conservative about sexuality and traditional gender roles and all of that stuff. And to your point, I do think it's almost interesting how some of these states start flipping, one way or another, because life is ever changing and priorities changing. It's like, okay, I might say, do you want to kill a dog? Do you want to kill a dog? No. But what if I'm going to kill your brother, right? Okay, all of a sudden now in contrast, as things change, it's like, well, I don't want to kill a dog, but I don't want this less or I want this more.
Yeah.
So,
The
yeah.
lesser of two evils.
Yeah. And the mistake that I've seen people make is a person with a college degree comes walking over to you, Arturo. Hey, you're stupid because you're poor. Why are you voting for those people based on religion and this other stuff? You're voting against your own self-interest. But you immediately lose these people because
100%.
how dare you presume to know their self-interest? Perhaps their self-interest is not the economy and this money talk that you keep talking about. Maybe they do understand money and they do understand that, but to them, abortion is a bigger issue. Maybe to them, their self-interest that trumps this talk about money and the economy is the traditional gender roles or something like that. So that's why somebody who lives in a trailer can go and vote for a Republican.
Do you think, though, that offers them some semblance of, I don't have to think what you think because I have the means to care for myself? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can say all this money stuff to me, but at the end of the day, I'm already poor.
Yeah.
And I can take care of myself.
And they're fine because
Exactly. Yeah. Like, what are you going to take from me if this happens? Because if that's the case, I can provide for myself.
Yeah.
But if you take this other thing away, this is what I hold dear. This is what I hold important. And I can't provide this for myself. So this is the most important thing to me.
Yeah. And as Wafeeq just said, right? It's like you lose them. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast, that it's like, I always say, let's bring back, I don't care about politics, and it's because, to your point, I think we used to have a shared reality pre-internet, right? Everybody's consuming the same stuff, right? So you're going to get less customized, right? All of a sudden, a virtual customized experience kind of creates silos, right? Silos that all of a sudden, oh, well, if I'm feeding this, maybe this is important in my tribe. And while before we could draw these lines of common sense because we all live in this shared reality, now it's like, let's say we're talking about gender rights, or we're talking about people, like voting against their own rights, their own self-interest economically. I agree. I think that we're not doing any disservice of getting more together by shaming people, or how would you? And what do I say? Let's bring back I don't care about politics. And I heard this from all people. Jordan Peterson, right? He said this, and I try to detach sometimes the message from the person, regardless of what it is, because this detaching the art from the artist. And he says this thing. It's like, you can have great times with people that you disagree, and that's what peace is all about. Right. And it's as long as they don't come into a direct conflict. I equate this to a lot of, like, especially with dudes, overall, generally, a lot of dudes seem to be able to be friends with other dudes that maybe their girlfriend or significant other would be like, why are you hanging out with us guys? Because whatever that person believes or whatever does not come into direct conflict against what I do. Right? Like, if your buddy's dating girls or whatever, as long as he's not dating anybody in your family, however he's with his, oh, I wouldn't, that's not how I date women, doesn't come into direct conflict. And I think similarly, even there are certain things that don't come into direct conflict, especially, I always say, I'd rather have a racist neighbor that calls me a Mexican guy next door, but, we help each other or whatever. And I don't care if he's racist as long as he doesn't make the choice to be a racist to me. He can think whatever the fuck he wants.
Because you can't stop him from what he's thinking anyway.
Over the neighbor that uses all the right words, but is on my ass on the HOA about it. Why are you so on me about it, right? I'd rather have, the redneck neighbors like, you know what? Fuck him. He does to himself. I do to myself. We don't cross the paths. If anything, this other person's coming across the path to me. And I think we used to be able to draw the common sense line. And whether it comes to gender roles, whether it comes to think, we have detached. So I think I see this a lot. One group trying to draw the line. It's like, no, this is the right thing. It's like, well, if the debate's still, like, if we've detached from reality before we could agree, now we can't, then we need to talk more before we draw what is an arbitrary line, really. It's really society agreeing. But I see too much of, like, to your point, oh, how dare you, this just should be like that. And you're not getting closer if you shut the other person out.
Mm-hmm. You got to start where they live. Find out what's important to them.
Yeah.
Ask questions. What is important to you before
what's your motivation? You know what I mean? Like, if you can find somebody's motivation, you can find maybe a different path to get to the same place, because we're all in this together, So.
Yep. And even if you disagree with their motivation, you might not be a religious person or a spiritual person,
but you can,
or a Bible thumping person. You can't tell them they're stupid for believing these
things. You can
Exactly.
respect them better for having known their platform. But if you have no conversation with them, there's no conversation. That's the end of it. Like, you're never going to understand anybody. Like,
you can't judge what gives the other person meaning in their life, especially if it's not coming into direct conflict, or it's something, like, obviously, people that like young boys or young girls, right? Well, everybody disagrees with that, right? Like, so that is coming in conflict.
There's certain societal.
So, like, once again, if they made him like that, and you think like, well, like, don't fucking do it, whatever you have to do, right? Like, because if somebody's insane, well, you can't really fault them for being insane, but you can punish insane acts against other people, right? I think this is a little different,
Well,
but,
I mean, there's a certain amount of living within society and accepting the rules that we have imposed upon ourselves as a society, but, still knowing that, there are things that we can learn from each other, and shutting down all conversation doesn't lead us to any type of paths towards understanding those people that maybe we disagree with. You know what I mean? It's just a disagreement.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to understand people better by shutting them down or telling them that they're crazy or they're stupid or they're wrong. People don't really want to hear that they're wrong. Even if they are wrong, that you need to help them come to that conclusion on their own, because telling them the sky's blue all freaking day, you can pound it into it's not going to change anything. People's beliefs are what they are, and nobody's going to accept you if you just want to tell people they're wrong.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Except
An
for
instrument
people.
bias. How do you know? How do if we think that somebody else is wrong, we have to be aware potentially that we may be compromised, right? Because we're seeing it through our lens, right? Our experiences, our culture, our traumas, or whatever, right? And I think a lot of people don't take into consideration. It's like, hold on, what am I bringing into it that colors the way that I'm viewing things? I think too many people think that they're the baseline, right? And it's hard to kind of look, step away and look inwardly at our own culture. I tell my mom, I'm like, there's no culture better than anybody, but within a society, there are things that, I think we can take from, Black culture, Latino culture, whatever, right? Like, like I like the orderliness. It really comes into help of some, especially like very Germanic or white culture. Okay, there is something to there applied to certain scenarios. I don't think the American way of putting your parents in home is a very good cultural thing. Latinos, we take care of our older people, right? So in that sense, I'd say, yeah, maybe there that other culture is better, but overall, nobody's perfect. They all have, or they've all organically grown. It's not like none of them were designed, right?
Yeah. It's true,
You know what? Wafeeq, we should have you back for Casa de Thinking, where we explore what is culture.
What is culture?
What
I'd
is
love to
culture?
be
That
there.
would be a good
Yes,
one, I think,
love that
right?
idea. You write that down. That's a good one.
Yes.
Well, I have it recorded.
Have you checked out some of our... Oh, yeah. You say that all the time.
You're such a boomer.
He says all the time, oh, we've got it recorded. Well, we'll
Got to
forget.
record it.
Yeah, I'll listen to it 5 times through the edit, so I'm sure I'll remember, like-
Anyway, Casa de Thinking, the
Casa de Thinking.
Yeah, the channel that poses questions that have no answers.
Yeah.
Okay. I like
Because
that.
what is
Exploring it.
culture?
What is culture? Questions that
created
have no
it?
answers.
Yeah, because there are a lot of things that we attribute names to. And I read Edward de Bono. He's a great author. He passed away already. But he mentions in one of his books where it's like, well, culture, faith, reality, consciousness, these are just words that we attribute to describe whatever we're doing. But we can't describe consciousness with the word consciousness, right? So in Casa de Thinking, we explore, like, what is consciousness? What is reality? What is culture? We'll do that episode with you. Or like, what is life? Like AI versus humans, right? Is sentience life or stuff like that? Where it's like, okay, they've met you here on the Manly Girly show, and now that's the follow-up.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that
Yeah.
because I'm in the process of trying to start my own culture of cooking macaroni and cheese that does not have breadcrumbs on top.
Fuck
yeah.
yeah. Wait, what kind of macaroni and cheese? I make a real good macaroni
You do?
and cheese.
Just
yes.
I want cheese on top of the macaroni and cheese.
That's it? You
I'm
don't like
getting
it? You don't like to
frustrated.
you don't like to jazz it up with the
You could do bacon, but I don't understand this breadcrumbs on top of macaroni and cheese.
I'm not a big
Is
fan.
it creates a crust? Is that why?
That's what they're telling me. I've tried it, but I feel like it's lacking a lot in flavor. I want more cheese on top of my macaroni and cheese.
So Gordon Ramsay has this macaroni and cheese dish that incorporates cauliflower. And I was like, Gordon
lost me
Ramsay.
already,
I
right there.
know,
You
I
just
know,
already
I know.
lost
But
me.
my son wanted to make it, and he said, Gordon Ramsay makes this, and let's have it, right? And so you make the macaroni and cheese, and there's a roux and everything like that. Like it's solid macaroni and cheese. I'm like, okay, it can't be that bad. But you blanch the cauliflower, and then you throw that in with your macaroni. And then after you cheese it all up, no breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
but you stick it in the oven on broil, crisp up that top. And I'm telling you, the cauliflower crispiness it's good. Like I'd never had it before. It was fire.
Crispy
So-
cauliflower top.
No, it's not like it's on the top. It's intermingled, and
It's like
whatever's
fake macaroni,
whatever's no,
it's like-
it's not. It's macaroni and cheese plus
He
cauliflower.
just put cauliflower
in with the macaroni and cheese, and I
Yeah.
don't know
I think
how
your
to
dad was just
explain
trying to be
it.
frugal.
My father didn't make it. My son did. My son
okay.
came home one day and he was like, Mom, I want to make this macaroni and cheese. And I was like, cauliflower, you lost me there.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But he is my son. So we had it. and it was good. Like, no, it's not something specifically so much that I'm like, oh, this is my regular macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
But I have a deeper appreciation for something that is so bizarre that I'm like,
That's
that
just
can't
the
be
half white
delicious.
side of them, you know. That's the flavorless side of them.
I
No.
would try it, but I'll tell you something about black people.
What?
We don't try anything new. If it's not what we already know, it's going to take one black person over the period of 10 years to do it over and over and prove that it's safe. Because black folks are not eating
We're
this
not
cauliflower
trustworthy.
macaroni and cheese.
Well,
So
know
you're
what?
on a journey of, teaching without breadcrumbs. So you have a 10-year journey ahead
Yes.
That-
Black folks are already converted. We don't like breadcrumbs on top of the
of you. Oh,
macaroni and
okay.
cheese.
Yeah. I don't know how to
makes
make
them-
macaroni and cheese, obviously, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, but
I just
the thing
know.
about
yeah.
breadcrumbs with me on macaroni and cheese is that the underside of the breadcrumb is always a little bit soggy, and then the top is extra crunchy. And I'm like,
Is
but
that why black macaroni and cheese is better? Because it doesn't have breadcrumbs?
Which one?
Like, is that why usually black macaroni and cheese is better? Because I've had it, like, whenever my black friends make macaroni and cheese is better, but I don't know how to make macaroni and cheese, so I don't know what the difference is.
I would say it maybe because, it could be because you're getting more cheese.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know why white people macaroni and cheese because I'm white. Why macaroni and cheese with white people is bad is because they just want to just melt some cheese on top of some noodles.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? They're just like, oh, throw some cheddar cheese on it. That shit is dry. It is nasty. It is not flavorful.
Yeah.
It's not. No, it's not what. No,
And
you
I
got to
just
make a
thought-
roux. You got to
You're
make
right.
a roux.
You're right. And I just thought of something else too. Traditionally, macaroni and cheese made in the black community is noodles tossed with the cheese. It's
Okay.
not a cheese sauce based macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
So when I started really experimenting with macaroni and cheese and cooking it different ways, I like the consistency of a cheese sauce based macaroni and cheese made from a roux. But I noticed that I was not getting all the cheese flavor. I was putting a ton of cheese in, but it wasn't as cheesy as when I did it the way my grandmother did it, which was to just
What did
dump
she
the cheese
do?
in with the noodles with some
And the
milk
heat will melt
and
it.
stir it
Yeah.
around, right?
Really?
So if you're gonna make a cheese sauce, you have to double up the amount of cheese,
Yes.
and maybe use a little less milk in order for the cheese flavor to
to
come
really
through.
permeate. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
cheese sauces have less flavor than just going straight cheese, and that's another reason why the macaroni and cheese you got from some black people probably hit harder with the cheese flavor.
Yeah.
I
'Cause
like
they
to
went
do.
hard on the cheese.
Oh, especially when I used to work in South Florida. I used to
Yeah.
work at a black bar for 4 years, mostly black and Latino, and some working class white folk. And that's where I got it mostly. And it was like all the time. I'm like, especially because as a Latino, if you're gonna compare what's closer flavor style, flavor profile to your food, traditional black cooking or traditional white cooking, it's not gonna be traditional white cooking. Okay,
I like them. I got mine now where I can do both. So I found a recipe, and it was made by it was a recipe that was made by a fat gay black dude from the South. So he
Okay.
checked all the boxes.
Hell yeah.
So you knew this was going to be good.
Yeah.
He's fat.
Yeah.
He was gay and flamboyant. So I was like, they don't come half stepping with anything.
No.
And he's black. So the macaroni and cheese got to be good. And he's fat. So the guy clearly likes food.
I
And
would
he's
call it
from
a
the
black
deep
bear
South.
macaroni. Yeah.
Right. So I trusted him, and he made it with a cheese sauce base, but he used a ton of cheese, and he has less milk, so his cheese sauce was super
Concentrated.
thick,
Yeah.
like thick like a brick. So it came out with the creaminess that we like from a cheese sauce, but you could cut it like a piece of cake, which
I
is what
hear you.
black
Yeah,
people
yeah,
typically
yeah.
like.
Yes. Okay.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
gonna make. You're gonna have to come back, copy
Yeah.
the thinking, and we're gonna make macaroni and cheese.
And because we
And
have
you're gonna
another
see.
segment that we're working on, and what's that segment called?
I don't know.
Is it possible to possible?
Oh, we do have another segment called
What's that?
Is It Possible to Postable?
Is it possible? What's this about?
It's about where we just get pasta from different places, whether it's homemade or from a restaurant or whatever, and we get it in a bowl and we try to eat it in different places.
Like,
Okay.
like,
Like-
at the bus stop, in a car,
In a car.
in bed, like,
Wherever
on the
you
toilet,
need to,
wherever.
Wherever you need to eat pasta bowls.
Okay.
Is
And then
it
we rate,
possible?
and then we rate how possible to eat the possible is.
Yeah, sign me up for that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sign
Awesome.
me up.
Hell
I
yeah.
like pasta.
Awesome,
Hell yeah.
Wafeeq. Well, thank you again for
Yeah,
coming
thank
so
you
much,
for
man.
coming.
We've
This
gotten to
was
know you.
so
I'm
enlightening, man.
like,
I really appreciated this, genuinely.
great getting
Thank
to know
you.
you better. You know, we look forward to having you again. You're a cool dude.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this has been Manly Girly. Tell us where they can find you or what you're up to.
Oh man, best thing to do is to follow me on Facebook. Follow me at Wafeeq Zarif Unleashed on Facebook. You can like and follow that. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which is just at Wafeeq Zarif. So I know I'm probably gonna have to spell it because I doubt anybody can.
We're gonna put it up on the bottom.
yeah,
Oh, you
yeah.
got it up?
We
All
got
right,
you. We
well, there
got
you
you.
go. Social media at Wafeeq Zarif on Facebook, Wafeeq Zarif Unleashed.
Perfect. Check him out. And check him out when he's back, you know, for Casa de Thinking and some macaroni and cheese. And it's impossible to possible. This has been Manly Girly. Thank you.
Thank you.